believe it's about getting the story out and informing what do we really need at Mungo. We know as Aboriginal people what we need out there, but we need to get the word out before we seek support, and our vision's got to be very clear on how we go about it. My vision is to have full ownership of that place and this cultural centre we're talking about. We design it. The traditional owners design it. We have a school conference every 2 years out there, and we get school kids from all over New South Wales, Victoria. We had 300 children out there earlier this year, and we immersed them in the deep culture of Aboriginal culture. We had Jim out there, school teachers, and we had elders out there. We try to teach the language. We had Barkindji language speakers, Yimpa language speakers out there, trying to teach them language. But that's one of my visions, anyway, to have full ownership and be controlled, and Aboriginal people in the senior management roles I spoke about.
What we want for that next 50 years, and it is about Aboriginal control, Aboriginal ownership, but it's about us having sharing it with everyone and sharing it with the rest of the world. So like when Nan and all that started this journey, and they started this and they started that that campaign for our rights, we're only just coming into the birth of our Aboriginal organisations at that time. We were still oppressed people. We still had, even Naki growing up still lived with no water. Dirt floor, no water, community tap for 20 hours, was it? No. How many? One tap for 20 houses?
27.
No, so this is in the 70s, So I guess that, but one thing we didn't have international policy documents that we do have now. Australia is signatory to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. There are high expectations within that document. Australia has signed it. How do we get? We've got Mungo as a world identified site under UNESCO. UNESCO have a policy document and policy requirements that supports us on our path to self-determination and with our vision. So it's about them walking the talk as a World Heritage listed site under UNESCO, holding that World Heritage, title. So it's about delivering on those expectations, and it's a path to reconciliation. It's also not just and it's a part of there's so many things and so many we've Aboriginal people, we've suffered so much since 1788. But this is a part. This is one element. Because of the United Nations focus, the UNESCO stuff. You've got so let's, for example, International Court of Justice, which and talks about transitional justice. This is one element that fits that that international criteria that enables that healing, that enables it's not just. I want to make this clear. This is not just we want ownership and control of it, but we don't want it for ourselves. We want it for the world. We want you guys to learn from us. We want you guys to be able to be immersed in our culture, have that healing, go through that healing with us. We don't want to exclude anyone from that, but we just, if we're talking about self-determination, then we want to realise self-determination, and we want those memorials, and we want Mungo. We are the site that proves to the world that we are the world's oldest continuous living culture. So, thanks.
I think Mungo is a very important place, and being a school teacher, I've been a school teacher for quite a while now, and this is something that we need a centre out there where schools from all over Australia, even from overseas, they can come out there, they can learn, and they can sit, they can learn off the elders, and they can see what happened out there, how the beauty, how very important it is. And this is something that should be showcased all around the world. But we do have a centre there so they can learn. And it's very important that we do that. And we love to share what we know, and we love to share it to everybody all around the world.
One of the things we need that you come and join us and help us build it. We can't do it alone. Secondly, we've got a lot we can learn of each other, but you can learn a lot of us as well. It's not only about our culture and heritage, but also about our connection to land, the caring to land, our spirituality that we share with our ancestors and to the present day today. And these are all the things that we can share with each other, you know. And the caring and sharing of country, that was a big part of our survival before white man come. And the other thing was our kinship care system that kept us together, possibly as long as we could, until the Protection Board come along. And then we had to struggle, but it was that kinship care system that saved a lot of us as well from being taken away. So we've got a lot to share: history, culture and knowledge with each other.
I think Dad just hit the nail on the head. And Ben, you asked about what you can do to help. Pretty simple. Tell the government, tell everyone, use what we want. You know, use the fact that yous are all here shows that yous are supporting it. You know, so simple. Just we've already made our statement. You know, we've presented the vision. Just tell the government, use what we want.
The return of the ancestral remains, what they know as the Willandra collection, including Mungo men. It was a concerted effort by everyone. So that's Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people. We come together as we do as Australians. We come together. There was a call, and what we do in Australia, we answer the call. We do it all the time. Our history has those stories sewn through it. It's what the nation is about. This is a snapshot of 35,000 years ago's society. There was a society. There were rules. There were religion. Mungo Man was buried with Oka. It's very important. Oka is Tinayapa. Tinayapa is the foot tracks of the rainbow serpent, one of the creator beings. We have this huge opportunity in this country that we have these wonderful, wonderful stories, this great history. People that, when I was a sites officer in the 90s, I'd go on the farms and we'd have a yarn and I'd realise that fella's got the same connection I have to this country. He feels the same thing. So it's infectious, but it brings us together. What happened on the 17th of November 2017 was the culmination of a group of Australians working together, and we do it all the time. So if we want to take that next step together, if we do want to acknowledge a very special place in history, we have that opportunity. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here today, was to have the yarn.
I want to reiterate the statement: immediate release all unsentenced prisoners. But I guess that let's just start. Let's look at the. I'm going to keep referring back to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. There's a set of guidelines that how do we to sort of like answer that question all in that? How do we have those? Realise the high expectations of that. How do we realise self-determination? Australia, like I said, 250 different language groups, 400 different nations. Each community, that's like a different country, but each community has has the ability to heal itself and fix itself. The elders there know what's good for them and what's good for their, for their kids. Revival of culture is core. Revival of culture. That will, to bring back the languages. If we can have, there's 38 different, so just in Victoria alone, we've got 38 different tribes. As part of the treaty process, one of my priorities is to make sure that how do we get languages fluent again? It'll probably take 5 generations, but we need to start that now, so that my grandchildren's grandchildren are fluent in language. That will enable the healing. That will enable us to have the reins in terms of delivering our own healing. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. So culture, absolutely first and foremost. We've got 230 plus years of of genocide and the ongoing effects of genocide. We've had the stolen generations, but even just in Victoria alone, we've got 3,000 Aboriginal babies and children in statutory out-of-home care. And that's just grown 2,000 just since the last Task Force 1000 that was looking into 1,000 Aboriginal kids, and that was only about 7 years ago. Like I talked about the Aboriginal deaths in custody, there's been over 400 since the deaths in custody report. There were 330 recommendations that came out of the Royal Commission, all still relevant today, but very few actually taken up. So we need to have a say in, we need to hold the reins with our healing. We need to be able to bring back our culture. Our culture will undo the healing. And it'll, and it'll also help, everyone else, because there's a lot that everyone can learn from our culture. And, and we're not just alone in this process. We stand in solidarity with 370 million Indigenous people all around the world. So, yeah, give us the control over our own affairs.
Everybody, Bruce Pascoe, put your hands together for Bruce Pascoe.
Thank you for coming all the way, uncles and brothers. Andrew Bolt aside, have you noticed in the last decade a different mood coming from mainstream Australia toward our people?
I think you can see that just in the last couple of years with the closures, with what was going on in WA with all the closures of communities and the ability of, what I was seeing just here in Melbourne, 60,000 people marching, in support to demanding the stopping of those communities. People are starting to hear the truth. That's where the support is coming from. It's this next gen, it's those who know the truth and those who are finding, our story. Well, we will always get, the numbers to march, but it's not when we're getting 60,000 people marching. 50,000 people are marching beside us. We don't make that. We don't make those numbers. So, I guess that's where the movement's starting to going. We've got all the talk around treaty. We saw what happened at Uluru. I was actually honoured enough to be there also at Uluru when we delivered Uluru's Statement of the Heart. We rejected the constitutional recognition because it was only symbolic. So it was actually the grassroots and the community people that came together that actually rejected that process. It wasn't the ones that were there, I guess, that were part of the government or handpicked or whatever. It was actually the grassroots or the people that were elected. So that's the grassroots people that are starting to get heard more. And I guess having the people, like I said, people getting that understanding of the truth. And, and if you're looking at now what's happening in New South Wales with all the bushfires, what's the first thing people are starting to talk about now? Why aren't we doing what the Aboriginal people did? Why aren't we doing cultural burns? So that, those sorts of things. So these things we're getting, more and more, and I think it's going to go stronger and stronger into that direction, because we're getting support that we never had before.
The activism in the 70s, we marched in the 70s for land rights. The argument's more sophisticated now. But as a nation, we're still quite young, so a lot of that conversation is difficult to have. People don't feel safe, and some of the opposition, as you mentioned, Uncle Bruce, was there is a hard core of opposition. And it's not about being equal, it's about equity. It's about, so acknowledgement, first off, that allows the credibility of your people to start to escalate. And that allows those conversations. But what's happening with some opposition is that they don't want to have that conversation. Some people like to be right, and they like to be right all the time. And as I found out in my short existence on the planet, is you're not right all the time. As a matter of fact, you'd be lucky if you're right about 15% of the time. And if you found, and this is what I said to my teams during the journey, this one, and we've got another really tricky one coming up, sensitivity. If you can make 60% of the people happy that we're servicing, then I consider that a pass mark. So how do we make everybody happy? We're not. We're not going to make everybody happy. There's people in the world, my brother, that do not want us to stand equal with them. You know, self-determination. I get that a lot of the time. Self-determination is realising that I wasn't going to be a professional star footballer, and at 29 thinking, am I going to be a labourer for the rest of my life? And I sat under a tree with my uncles, and they talked about, and my aunties, and they talked about their vision for the future. They knew they weren't going to be about, but they had that vision. And we call it getting picked on. They said, and you guys, you and yous, will be the ones that'll do it. So get yourselves back to school, get the qualification, because that gives you credibility. And that's what it's about, is credibility gets you then in the door, and if you have the conversation, people then will start to see your point of view. And it's about working together. Like I said before, we're all Australians. We're all here in this country. Nobody's going to go home back to England or back to India or wherever, right? I'm certainly not going to go back and try and eke out a living off the land. I like my clothes. I like my Weet-Bix, and I love a Cooper's Pale Ale, if anybody's buying that. So these are the things. We're here together. We live together. What's the future going to be? How do we manage land better with traditional burning and things like that, or variations of that? They're the conversation we don't allow ourselves to have because we get caught up with these political conversations around Australia Day. 26th of January 1788. That was the colony of New South Wales. So we actually celebrate every year. Well, we don't. Don't have it. We celebrate the establishment of the colony of New South Wales. So let's start thinking about what we are arguing about first. Anyway, thank you.